Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP,
Mickey B. Fresh.
and we have a special episode for you guys today about Polkadot, which we are calling the case for a future of interoperability. And before we dive into this, just want to state we are not financial advisors. Nothing in this is financial advice. Definitely do your own research. I will link a bunch of stuff you can look into about Polkadot and how it was created, and some videos too that I found helpful in learning about it in the description, so you can view that on your own. And also, Mickey and I both own some of the DOT token, which is the native asset of Polkadot. So just so everybody knows, but we'll kind of get into what we like about the project, give you some brief overview on how it works, what are the tokenomics, a few of the technicals, and I think that'll sum up most of it. So to start off, the founder of Polkadot is named Dr. Gavin Wood. You may know him from the Ethereum project, where he was the chief technology officer. He also was responsible for creating the Solidity smart contract language and is the founder of the Web3 Foundation, as well as Parity Technologies, which is kind of, I would liken to the Ripple. What Ripple is to XRP, they are that to Polkadot. So they are like the largest firm working with it. And Parity additionally has, I believe, up to 100 developers working on it. So it's a pretty big corporation at this point. And Dr. Gavin Wood's thing with Polkadot is he likes to refer to it as a bet against maximalism, and the whole design of the ecosystem is built for interoperability and being able to scale a proof of stake network.
So now, Patty, the main token for the Polkadot ecosystem. Now, we know there's going to be 100 parachains around then this main net here, which is going to be for the DOT token. So let's get into the DOT token. And, as you said, both you and I are invested. It's a small part of my portfolio, but I just started accumulating in something that I really liked because it is a proof of stake token. So this is different than, say, XRP or Spark, for example. Now, this token, I believe it's 60 to 70% of the actual token is staked. Now, can you get into here a little about what is the DOT token's utility for the network and its use cases?
Absolutely. And yeah, you're right. I've seen from most of the measurements that are metrics around the network that 60 to 70% is staked at any given time. And so, as you're saying, the native token is called DOT. And with that, there is about a 1 billion supply. It is increased from there as the staking rewards are delivered through inflation of the DOT token. Interestingly enough, the original supply was actually 10 million. And like we've covered in the past with the Songbird network, Polkadot has a Canary network and is really one of the first projects to implement one in the name Kusama. They actually had a vote on there before Polkadot ever launched on if they would increase what the supply is going to be. And they did so by a factor of 100, which brought it to 1 billion total supply. So, with that, the main use case of the DOT token is to provide security to the network. And the way this works is Polkadot's consensus is called like a heterogeneously sharded nominated proof of stake network. So that's a real big mouthful, but let's kind of break that down. So with a nominated proof of stake, that means you're going to have validators like you would on any other blockchain. And those validators are responsible for ordering and processing transactions and making sure everything's valid, no double spend, and things like that. So people will act as nominators with their DOT tokens, and they stake them with these validators, ones that they think are trustworthy and are going to have the best interest of the network at heart. As the way to do that, you only get rewarded in the DOT token inflation if you are being a beneficial actor as a validator. So when you put up stake with one of these validators as a DOT token holder, it locks up your token for a period of 28 days before you're able to remove it from that validator. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do that, you've thoroughly researched your validators, what you're looking for in a validator and making sure they're going to be included in the active validator set. So that's another thing. If one of these validators falls offline, they have a backup set of validators that are ready to step in at any time. And so with this, we had the nominators that stake the dot with the validators. Validators are also able to stake dot on their own behalf. And then additionally, Mickey was talking about how there's this main net, which they call the relay chain. So you can kind of liken this to the XRP ledger in a way that they try and keep it really lean and fast. So it just, does the core functions that they need for their entire ecosystem. And then basically they have what they call parachains that are living parallel. So hence parachain. It's a parallel blockchain to the relay chain. And with that, you're going to have these groups of nodes that live on the parachains called collators, and they aggregate all the transactions and batch them and send them over to the validators on the relay chain so that the consensus of all these parachains can be in line with the consensus of the relay chain and it can communicate between all these different blockchains. So they're really looking for interoperability with this, Mickey. And furthermore, with the DOT token, so it also has governance voting rights. So they have a decentralized governance, which I think is getting pretty important with a lot of projects these days. Additionally, transaction fees are paid in the DOT token. And then the final thing, which I think may be the coolest that they're offering, is with these parachains, there's a limited number of spots. So these projects have to compete against each other to get one of these parachain slots. And they do that in what they call leasing, essentially. So let's say I'm launching a new DeFi project and it's going to go on as a parachain on Polkadot. What I would have to do is kind of, get the Polkadot community, the dot holders aware of what my project is, show how good it is, tell them what incentives they have for coming to my project. And then during what they call a parachain loan offering, so a PLO, you can kind of, a little similar to initial public offering, but basically the dot holders will bond how much dot they want to a project in the hopes that enough people do that and they have the highest bid for a parachain slot. And they do this with something called a candlestick auction. So dissimilar from eBay where you can wait till the last second to put in your bid. um, the the time, there's like a 5 or 6 day, I don't know, 5 to 7 day period for these auctions, and they take a snapshot at a random point during the auction, and whichever project has the highest amount of dot bonded behind it, they will be awarded the parachain slot. So they do this because it makes more sense to then go put the full amount that you would put behind a project in at the beginning, and you don't have people coming in at the last second to bid up the price. So I think that's an interesting way they go about it. And some of these
I think
oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that this is one thing about the DOT token is you see that a lot's going to be locked up for staking, and then you're also going to be used in these PLOs for basically locking up the supply. And I think this just draws to, I just wanted to throw out here with the DOT, price, and this is not financial advice, but it does give a lesser supply on the circulating market that's traded. More is getting locked up. So I just wanted to just point that out. And I also want to throw one thing in there with, just so everyone knows, the actual relay chain itself that uses DOT does not have smart contracts. Is that correct, Patty?
Yes, the relay chain does not. The parachains are smart contract agnostic, so they can utilize whatever kind of smart contract language they would like.
Now that's really cool. I mean, that's something similar. We had David Schwartz talk about the XRP Ledger sidechains, and we know the XRP Ledger doesn't have smart contracts, and they chose not to put them in there. And now we see like Polkadot's doing the same thing with DOT. There's not going to be cluttered with a whole business logic layer there on the main relay chain. So you could look at, I mean, there is a similarity here, Patty, between what Polkadot's doing with their parachains and what David Schwartz proposed with the federated side chains of having these outside ecosystems that have their own custom smart contracting language. They have more flexibility, and then they connect to one main chain, which Polkadot calls the relay chain. XRP Ledger calls the mainnet. So there is some similarities there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like the Ripple X team saw what Polkadot was doing with this, and they saw it as a good way to scale, the XRP ledger without clogging up the main net with, too much computations and all that kind of stuff. And, to add on to what you're saying, yes, like a ton of the DOT token is getting locked up either through staking. We said it's about 60 to 70% of the DOT tokens are actively locked up in staking. And you also have to wait 28 days before removing any. So, that creates a bottleneck on supply. Additionally, these parachains have not launched on Polkadot yet. So right now they're being tested on the Kusama network, which we're saying is the Canary net for Polkadot, and they're testing out that whole functionality, the auctions, letting some of those projects launch on Kusama before they open it up to Polkadot. So we're going to see more DOT tokens locked up for even longer periods of time than it takes to stake. So if you're
Now that would increase value over
yes,
time there, right? By
I
doing that.
I would think, at least like
Mhm.
the tokenomics are there to point that
Mhm.
direction. And the thing is, so let's say I put up 100 DOT and I bond it for a project that's vying for a parachain slot. Well, if their lease is for 2 years, then that means that my tokens are locked for 2 years until that lease is up. At that point, I can take them out. So as we see more of these parachains coming online, that's going to be a lot of DOT that's locked up for a long period of time. Now, I'm getting incentives for doing this because obviously I'm not staking my DOT. So I have to make this decision and opportunity cost. Okay, so I can stake my DOT. It only takes 28 days to unlock if I want to sell it. Or what I can do is I can take my DOT and bond it behind one of these parachain projects, and it's going to be locked up for a much longer period of time, but I'm going to get incentives in the native tokens of these parachains and have those delivered to me without investing additional capital. And also, when I say lease, it's not like, I'm paying for a lease, that kind of thing. It's just I have, the value behind this project is high enough for it to occupy a parachain slot. I also think with these leases not being permanent, it's going to create, competition between these, different blockchains that are connecting to Polkadot
Yeah.
because you only have a limited time. So if your project's not performing, then nobody's going to continue to back your project once that time period's up. So like you really got to be serious about what you're doing and you got to innovate on top of it. You can't fall behind. So I think that provides a lot of good incentives there between the people bonding their DOT behind these parachain projects and then the parachain projects themselves and what they need to do.
Yeah, that's well said. That's that. Now let's jump into here with, well, what do you actually earn from staking? So what is the percentage yield here that if we stake our token, and we can do this, people, so you can do this through Ledger Live, actually, and you can do it through Polkadot.js, and you can do it through some other ways like on Kraken and Celsius. So what is the average like yield rate that you would earn by staking your DOT tokens? And also, what would you earn by bonding your tokens now with a parachain? Do you earn the native tokens at a certain rate?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And when you're staking, right now, what I'm seeing, the yield is somewhere between 10 to 14%, depending on who you go with. So that's pretty good interest on staking. I'd say it's like, in the upper half of staking projects out there as far as like some of these big layer ones go. Which I think it's pretty solid interest rate. And then additionally, yeah, if you bond your tokens, there's more speculation to it, but there's more upside. So I kind of think of, staking for the security of the network, kind of like, it's pretty fixed. It's going to stay like in that range for the most part. Now, when you go to these projects, you don't actually know how they're going to end up performing when they get on there. And there's also the chance that you lock up your token during an auction period and that parachain project doesn't get enough backing. So those are some things to consider, but you do receive rewards in the native tokens. And some of the projects I've looked at so far, they do have a vesting period. So, it could be like for a year or something like that, and you'll have them gradually released to you over the course of its launch, basically. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
this is like a longer term. You believe in the ecosystem. You want to invest some of your DOT. And one thing here I see from DOT is it's not trying to do too much as a token. So this is, I like, in the past, we've talked about how certain proof of stake networks, the native token is trying to do so much and also secure the network. Well, what they did here with DOT is they kept it. It's going to be used to secure the network, used for governance, and its value is going to be locked then for these PLOs. And I think that's a good use case for a proof of stake token where it's not trying to do too much. It's transaction fees, staking and the PLOs, and not too much elsewhere. Each application will kind of have its own native token, which will then be used in that ecosystem. But now, can you use DOT on these parachains? Is that
Yes.
possible to wrap them and bring them over to smart contract capability?
Yes, so I don't even think they need to wrap within the parachains between the relay chain, but yeah, they're all interoperable with each other, and these parachains can communicate with other parachains in the ecosystem as
Mm.
well. And so that's another thing, Mickey, that we talked about these parachains. Well, they also have parachain bridges, so they have one with Ethereum that's going to be there, where they can wrap tokens from DOT to Ethereum, wrap ERC tokens from Ethereum over to Polkadot. Additionally, they're working on a Bitcoin bridge, and they also have a project that is working on a bridge between the permission project from Facebook called Diem. So that's something, I don't know if that's going to come to light or not, but there is a project actively working on that could be pretty big in the future, with Facebook's user base and how much of a stir it caused with all the regulators out there and politicians when Facebook announced their project originally. What was it, a year or two ago? So,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a lot of activity on DM, like on their GitHub. I mean, they have this thing called Move, is kind of like their smart contract thing. So there is development going on DM, and it is Facebook. They have billions of users. So anything that could connect to DM like that, if Polkadot's looking to do the first, it is very interesting, and they're connecting to Ethereum. And we also saw in Flare's white paper, they brought up Polkadot and connecting to it. So let's talk a little about that and how that would work in the future, say, hypothetically, of what they said in the white paper.
absolutely. So with Polkadot, some of these parachains are going to be taken up by the bridges, by these PLOs we were describing with different projects. They also have what they term common good parachains, which are done via voting through governance and some of the other governance structures that they have that we won't get into in this conversation. But essentially, they could say, okay, if we do a parachain bridge with the Flare network, this could be a common good for the entire Polkadot ecosystem because it opens up more interoperability, which they are all about. And what this could also do is limit how many parachain bridges that they need to create to connect to some of these legacy blockchains that don't have smart contracts. So right now we know Flare has a really solid way with the stake connector system and the F asset system to move the value of Litecoin or XRP or Stellar or Doge onto the Flare network. Well, now you can trustlessly even propagate those assets onto Polkadot, and you could also do the same back over to Flare. So that could open up a whole corridor where Flare's connecting with a lot of these older blockchains, like maybe Bitcoin Cash in the future and stuff like that. And instead of these parachain slots, since they have a limited number, being occupied by a bunch of bridges, they could just have a solo bridge to Flare where they know they can get access to a bunch of these different assets. And I think that's exactly what Hugo and his team was thinking when they wrote that into the Flare white paper.
Yeah, that is very interesting note. And now we know both networks kind of have these canary networks. So it'd be interesting to see if they started something with, to start with Songbird connect to Kusama, just to test it, because they're both pretty much identical of Kusama's Polkadot and Songbird is Flares. So we could see something develop there. And that's what's so great about having these canary networks. You could test the highly innovative stuff before bringing it on like the big chain. Even though the other one is a mainnet too, you could test it on these forward-leaning, innovative canary chains. And this is something exciting moving forward. And that's why I'm so happy Flare did that. And it has been so successful for Polkadot having Kusama there. Now, how do you think that has affected the success of Polkadot?
Oh, massively. So, I mean, they even have Kusama Maxis at this point, that just like Kusama so much. But I
Does
think
that
what
mean we're gonna have Songbird Maxis?
that's what I'm wondering. I mean, maybe I'll be a Songbird Maxi, you never know. But, yeah, no, I mean, we've seen Kusama got up to like a $6 billion market cap during the height of the bull run a couple months ago. Obviously, Polkadot's been a top 10 project here for, I'd say, at least a year now. So there's a lot of interest in both of those ecosystems. Additionally, I will say Gavin Wood, the founder and who's still working on the network, and they're still rolling out everything with the main chain in Polkadot. He's not like the biggest communicator. He's more of a put your head down kind of guy and just get stuff done. Kind of like the opposite of Charles Hoskinson with Cardano, who likes to communicate with the community a lot. So I think Gavin Wood's kind of like, I guess Hugo I'd like into that. Yeah, they do some stuff and get out there, but there'll be dark periods where they're not, talking for a while. So that's something to expect. Also, I do want to add in that they had an ICO for DOT in, I believe, 2017 was the year, and they've had a couple private sales. So that's just something to take into account if you look to possibly invest in this. But what I see, and one of the reasons I'm trying to get my hands on DOT now, is that when these parachains go online with on Polkadot, we're going to see a lot more of the DOT token being locked up, and it may provide you some interesting opportunities to get into some of these parachain projects early on. And so another cool thing, Mickey, that they can do, the way that like all the communication and interoperability happens throughout the Polkadot network, they actually can take um, Oracle projects that had to operate off chain or like in a side chain type environment, and they can have them operate on chain via Polkadot's relay chain. So that's something we're seeing. Chainlink is going to take up a parachain slot. And then they have another Oracle project that's trying to go the parachain loan offering route. So I think that's really powerful. And that's something we like about Flare with the FTSO is it's on chain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the FTSO is definitely a powerful system that's going to create a vast ecosystem of additional use cases in the future for Spark and other applications. And oracles are going to be a big part of all this because there's the oracle problem, and Ethereum suffers with that right now. And I think it's important to bring up this Dr. Gavin Wood here. He was the head creator of Ethereum. He left Ethereum. I mean, he was the main coder. He created Solidity, and he was not on board with where Ethereum was going, and he turned and left and created his own project. So what does that say long term about the viability of Ethereum? And I'm not trying to knock it, but you see the person who created it left to go create something else that's different and better. So I just, Ethereum right now is kind of the standard when it comes to smart contracts. But we see that, one of the key founders left. Charles Hodkinson also was one of the founders. He left. So even Hugo has said the Ethereum virtual machine right now is the standard with Solidity, but it might not always be. And now on these parachains, some of them can have Ethereum virtual machines with Solidity. Some can have WebAssembly and other types of smart contracting languages built just for those applications. And I like that flexibility where everything is not locked into just one type, depending on which application it is.
Yeah, and another great part about these parachains is they have this like coding library called Substrate that easily allows you to import different functionality into your blockchain. So, it's a way of lowering that barrier of entry to start developing within the Polkadot ecosystem. And so, with this like last part of the video, Mickey, I just kind of want to touch on some different things about my thoughts of how it expands in the future. I think Polkadot will be great for these bridges between different blockchains and being able to propagate assets from one onto another. Additionally, they're really targeting projects with like Internet of Things capability. They're talking about, having smart city parachains, robotics parachains. So, like, I know a lot of people like to kind of compare the XRP ledger to Amazon. But to me, or Ripple to Amazon, to me, Polkadot seems like something that could function in an Amazon like way, where it's this huge marketplace for a lot of different things that can all talk to each other. They can send assets between each other, and they can hook out to other blockchain networks. So to me, that's really powerful. And as like, 5G gets ramped up and all these other like, developments and technology that are happening right now, I mean, who knows? You could have a smart city that has its own parachain, and whatever, like maybe there's a common token through there that runs through that. I mean, that's just like me kind of thinking like long term, like speculating a lot, but they are targeting that kind of stuff too. It's not just all about DeFi. You could have a pure gaming parachain or for whatever you want to do, as long as you can get the backing from people or it's considered a common good, it gives you the ability to get in there. So to me, I just think there's a lot of possibilities with this network, and the openness and flexibility, the interoperability, those are just all big things for me in the future where we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And, aside from the tokenomics, which I think look pretty solid with the token being locked up left and right for DOT, um, I just really I think there's a good future for this project.
And it's also this, remember, DOT is listed on Coinbase in the US. It's on Kraken. So this is an asset that's on many of the big major exchanges. The top 10 crypto at the moment, I believe, right? I
Yeah, it's
believe
just
DOT's in there.
inside.
It's just inside. So this is a top 10 crypto. This isn't something that, is number 180 on, the total. It's the top 10 crypto pretty much since it's been in existence. It kind of just went to the top 10 and kind of stayed there. And it goes to show the development is there. It has the Kusama network. And like what Patty said, interoperability, I think, is going to be huge here and allowing to create other types of ecosystems. And we don't know really where all of crypto goes and the blockchain in the future. If somebody tells you they know where it's going to go in 5 years, well, they don't know. This sand is moving under us. The ground is moving and we're moving at warp speed. So think of it like that. Things change rapidly and they will. So nothing is known or set in stone. And these bear bull market things, I think, in a way, honestly, just like Glenn Hutchins said, price is a distraction. And it is. And it's a very big distraction because it catches everybody. Because granted, we're here to make money, but at the same time, you have to understand the tech. And now understanding the tech, it takes a little work, and I know everyone wants the answers, but it takes a little effort to understand and just understand the terminology. So you do have to put in a little extra work. And I know we all live busy lives, but if you want to really invest and do well in this future market, there's nobody who has the answers to 5 years from now. So you have the ability to learn and understand all this before 99.99% of the rest of the world's populations. So you're here before everyone. So the tech is more important now than ever. And I know people say, well, I'm here for the money. Well, if you're here for the money, you would see that the tech is where the money is. So long term, it is important to understand and not be intellectually lazy and try to understand. You might not be able to get it at first, but keep listening and then look into it yourself and do your own research and talk to others who are familiar with this. And that's how you really have a grasp on the ecosystem moving forward and not just take one person's opinion for everything. So I think this was our first broad overview of Polkadot. We're going to get into more of the details and dive into it over the future. We're going to make other videos. Patty will make some because, like he said, this is something we are both invested into, and that is a disclaimer here. But it's only a small part of my portfolio. I'm going to be honest. I'm majority XRP at the moment now, and it'll probably be Spark and Songbird in the future, and that ecosystem. But DOT and Parachains is something I'm looking at really hard right now in the future. Now, how do you feel about the Parachain projects in the future? Is that something you look to get into, Patty?
100%. I mean, that's why I've started, stacking DOT over the past month. The price, fell 70% from the high, which was another big reason. I saw how low it fell. I saw they have the Parachains coming online soon with Polkadot. I kind of missed the Kusama Bonanza already, but it's just I look at these and I say, okay, if I can get my money into one of these assets and then it has a way to tree branch out into other assets and more value without me putting up more of my fiat to do so, then I'm always highly interested in that. The
Boom.
staking rates are pretty high as well. So that's good. If I decide, maybe none of these parachains are for me, well, I can, go ahead and just stake my DOT and earn, 10 to 14% a year. It's not too bad. And I also know that the supply is not going to be, just abundant on the network either. So I could have some hopes for maybe price appreciation. And, for me, it's we got, Ethereum 2.0 coming up. We got Solana, which is a really cool project. Cardano. I know a lot of the XRP community loves Cardano. We're going to have Flare and we have Polkadot. There's probably room for all of these projects to have a decent amount of value on them. I don't ultimately know who's going to be the winner, but when I look at it, I just want to see who has the most openness, interoperability, flexibility, and some good tokenomics to go with it. And, even let's say Cardano or Ethereum 2.0 are the big winner in the end. It doesn't mean that these other networks can't have value from where we are at this point in time. I definitely think there's room for a lot of these different blockchains to have specialties that works best for them. And if they can connect to other blockchains, that just makes it easier for people to move their value onto them without having to make these opportunity costs of, do I swap my DOT tokens for Ethereum? Well, really, I can just move my DOT onto Ethereum, or I can move my DOT onto Flare, or maybe I can move my FXRP onto DOT in the future. And I think that's just really powerful. It's just all about, making stuff easier for people, which Polkadot has a ton of resources online. They have a ton of videos. Like, they have a lot of great stuff to read from. Their website's awesome. And, they really believe in trying to make this as easy as possible too for people. They understand that, like, when your average day person that doesn't give a crap about this, they need a way to work with this and really not even know anything that's happening with the blockchain in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's interoperability in the future. And I just wanted to touch on one thing that you said there. So inflation has been always something that has been looked at as a negative. We want deflation, but it's where does this inflation go? It's not going to miners. It's not going to just some entities secure the network. It's going to those people who could all participate. So if you stake DOT, you're earning a percentage of that inflation. So inflation isn't always bad. It's what creates the rewards here. It just depends on the network. The proof of work networks don't give you anything unless you're mining. So this is a network that gives you the rewards you're able to participate in and be part of the community and the governance. And I think this is where we're going in the future. And I don't think we're going to have just one winner. I really don't. I think a lot of these networks with the interoperability will link them together where we'll have multiple underlying infrastructures. And then on top of them, we have parachains, different dApps, and layer twos that are built. This ecosystem has a long ways to go in growing. I mean, it could be a decade or two. I mean, it's going to continue to go. There's really no end point where like, oh, we got there. It's just going to keep going. So I don't know, somebody could be the winner in 2025, and then by 2027, there could be a bigger value on this network. So it's hard to predict. We all talk like an endpoint or like a price goal, but there's really no endpoint. It's just a continuous evolution of the ecosystem because it's not going anywhere at this point. It's already established and it's going to keep growing. So now's the time to look at these projects because we are, very early still. We're still very early. Like Polkadot isn't fully built out. Cardano doesn't even have smart contracts yet. So many of these networks aren't fully built. Ethereum 2.0 hasn't even come into existence yet. But at least with one thing with Flare, I do have to say is when it does launch, it's going to be at full capabilities. So I have no sympathy for anyone complaining about the 2-month delay because they obviously didn't read the blog post and understand that when the network launches, it has full capabilities. So no sympathy for those people.
Nice. Well,
Sorry, just read the blog. I mean, you're going to have full capabilities. You're complaining about 2 months or 3 months for a free token. So I think a lot of our viewers here, I think, understand that. And I'm glad to see that in the comment section that people really are getting it and the light bulbs going off. So that's a great thing. I'm glad to see. And I know sometimes, some of the comments they say, oh, you guys are very technical, but we're really not devs. We're not programmers. We're just explaining to you, these are the terms of how things work. And sometimes you got to start at the bottom to be able to understand them. But we're not, rocket scientists or anything. We're regular people. So if we could understand it, you can too.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
feel confident in that.
Yeah, and I mean, to leave it off with this, like, we've been in, a 2-month downturn now with the market where it's not doing anything, and that's the best time to learn about other stuff because you're being able to purchase at, much more discounted prices. And if you believe in the future of crypto and the market's going to go back to where it was, this is the best time to learn about different projects, whether it be Flare, Polkadot, Cardano, or all these other great ones that are coming out. They all have something special to offer and trade-offs between other networks, but now's the time to kind of figure that stuff out. So, yeah, I'll leave it with that. We're definitely going to cover this more in the future. Let us know if you guys are interested or not in the comments. I'm curious. I'm definitely going to do them just because I like this project and Mickey does too. But otherwise, this is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP.
And I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
And we are out. See you guys.